Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we take a waltz through the history of time in this material world together. Sanatana Goswami, one of the great spiritual authorities in our line, wrote a prayer about this Bhagavatam, glorifying the Bhagavatam. It's called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. It's from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which he compiled. Text 412 to 416, just getting down my volume so that doesn't happen again. By Srila Sanatana Goswami. We're going to chant the Sanskrit and the English. And I think there's something in that, that little bookmark has it, yeah. Well, come on in. You're welcome. Okay. How are you?
Good.
Oh, good. I was really worried that you were good, but you are, so that's the way to get rid of worry. Hare Krishna. Is Dad coming?
He's parking the bikes.
Okay. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Purusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidvan Doritaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life, heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nisarnaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namosute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin Atini chochata kada Hanamuncha gadachin mam Prem narit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're in the middle of a this is like the blockbuster of all blockbusters. 18,000 verses with hundreds and hundreds of stories that all take us from one place to another until we go ultimately to the eternal spiritual world. And in between, so many things happen. And one thing that we're right in the middle of a story where one of the original mothers of the universe had two sons that were killed, and she became very angry. And she asked her husband to please, because her husband was a big rishi, a big sage, who had mystic powers and could perform sacrifices to fulfill anyone's desires. Haribol Sarva, Hare Krishna. So he was very attached to her, as all husbands are to all wives, and she treated him so nicely that he felt so obliged to her that he promised her, whatever you like, if it's within my power, I will benedict you. And then she said, I want a son who can kill Indra, who was responsible for killing her 2 sons. Whoa. So Kashyapa said, oh my God, what have I done? Because now I gave my promise. And virtuous people, when they say they're going to do something, they do it. That's part of virtue. Right? Nowadays, virtue has been thrown out the window, and nobody actually takes so seriously what they say. They always are figuring out a way to get around it or get out of it. But real virtue, real truth, means if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if you keep doing that long enough, then people get faith in you. And ultimately, if you do that properly, God will have faith in you. And He'll want to come and be with you, because you'll have virtue, spiritual virtue, true virtue. So that's the purpose of Krishna consciousness. It's the purpose of what we're doing, what we're hearing, how we're acting, our cultural things that we do. So we're starting from the 18th chapter of the 6th canto. We've already read 6 cantos up to the 18th chapter. And we're starting from the 44th verse. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Kashyapa Muni, thinking in this way, became somewhat angry, condemning himself for giving this promise. O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Kuru, he spoke to Diti, his wife, as follows. Text 45. Kashyapi said, my dear gentle wife, if you follow my instructions regarding this vow for at least 1 year, you will surely get a son who will be able to kill Indra. However, if you deviate from this vow of following the Vaishnava principles, you will get a son who will be favorable to Indra. Now this is the way he's tricking her, because a pure Vaishnava doesn't wish anyone ill. And that's the goal, to become a person who doesn't wish anyone ill for any reason. So he's tricking her. Yes, you can get a son who will kill Indra, but in order to do that, you have to do this for a year. And if you do this for a year, you'll become a pure Vaishnava and you'll give up this desire. In that way, the Bhagavatam teaches us what to do and what not to do. And if you do something that's bad, how to overcome it. Purport. The word Indraha refers to an asura who is always eager to kill Indra. An enemy of Indra is naturally a friend to the asuras. But the word Indraha also refers to one who follows Indra, or one who is obedient to him. When one becomes a devotee of Indra, he is certainly a friend to the demigods. Thus the words Indra, Hadeva, Bandava are equivocal, for they say, your son will king Indra, but he will be very friendly to the demigods. If a person actually becomes a friend of the demigods, he certainly would not be able to kill Indra. Text 46. Diti replied, my dear Brahmana, I must accept your advice and follow the vow. Now let me understand what I have to do, what is forbidden, and what will not break the vow. Please clearly state all this to me. Purport. As stated above, a woman is generally inclined to serve her own purposes. Kashyapa Muni proposed to train Diti to fulfill her desires within 1 year. And since she was eager to kill Indra, she immediately agreed, saying, please let me know what the vow is and how I have to follow it. I promise that I shall do the needful and not break the vow. This is another side of a woman's psychology. Even though a woman is very fond of fulfilling her own plans, when someone instructs her, especially her husband, she innocently follows, and thus she can be trained for better purposes. By nature, woman wants to be a follower of a man, and therefore if the man is good, the woman can be trained for a good purpose. 47. Kashyapa Muni said, "My dear wife, to follow this vow, do not be violent or cause harm to anyone." Remember, for a whole year she has to do this. Do not curse anyone, and do not speak lies. Do not cut your nails and hair, and do not touch impure things like skulls and bones. Kashyapa purport. Kashyapa Muni's first instruction to his wife was not to be envious. The general tendency of anyone within this material world is to be envious, and therefore, to become a Krishna conscious person, one must curb this tendency. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Paramo Nirmatsaranam, Bhagavatam 1:1-2. So that was the very beginning. 1:1-2 means Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 2. That's the second verse of the whole Bhagavatam. And this Paramo Nirmatsaranam, there's another word after that, Satam, are the basic qualifications that one has to have to be able to hear this book. You know, Jesus said, "Let those who have ears hear." I mean, what does that mean? We all have ears, hole in our head, little fibers inside that vibrate, catch the sound and bring it into our brains and allow us to be able to connect with our environment. So what does he mean, let those who have ears hear? It means that if you, in order to hear spiritually, you have to, the sound has to go through the ear, through the mind, through the intelligence, to the soul. And if you hear transcendental sound that wakes up the soul, and you allow the sound to go all the way through without interfering with it, that's called rapt hearing or rapt meditation. So these are the qualifications for hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam properly in such a way that your original consciousness, your original love for Krishna, and therefore your love for all living beings, which is connected, just like the root of a tree is connected to the whole tree, then you can hear. So Paramo means supreme, Nirmatsaranam means freedom from envy, and Satam means honest. So this honesty, this kind of honesty means more than just, paying your bills on time and doing what you say you're going to do and all those. This honesty means if something is true and you hear it, you can recognize it as true and accept it and act accordingly. These are the qualifications, the only qualifications. It's called, in a nutshell, all together, it's called sincerity. No ulterior motives. A Krishna conscious person is always non-envious, whereas others are always envious. Thus, Kashyapa Muni's instruction that his wife not be envious indicates that this is the first stage of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Kashyapa Muni desired to train his wife to be a Krishna conscious person, for this would suffice to protect both her and Indra. Text 48. Kashyapa Muni continued, "My dear gentle wife, never enter the water while bathing, never be angry, and do not even speak or associate with wicked people. Never wear clothes that have not been properly washed, and do not put on a garland that has already been worn." Text 49. "Never eat leftover food, Never eat prasad offered to the goddess Kali, Durga, and do not eat anything contaminated by flesh or fish. Do not eat anything brought or touched by a Shudra, nor anything seen by a woman in her menstrual period. Do not drink water by joining your palms. Purport. Generally, the goddess Kali is offered food containing meat and fish, and therefore Kashyapa Muni strictly forbade his wife to take the remnants of such food. Actually, a Vaishnava is not allowed to take any food offered to the demigods. A Vaishnava is always fixed in accepting prasad offered to Lord Vishnu. Through all these instructions, Kashyapa Muni, in a negative way, instructed his Diti, his wife Diti, how to become a Vaishnavi. Text 50. After eating, you should not go out on the street without having washed your mouth, hands, and feet. You should not go out in the evening or with your hair loose, nor should you go out unless you are properly decorated with ornaments. You should not leave the house until you are very grave, unless you are very grave and sufficiently covered. Purport. Kashyapa Muni advised his wife not to go out onto the street unless she was well decorated and well dressed. He did not encourage the miniskirts that have now become fashionable. In Oriental civilization, when a woman goes out into the street, she must be fully covered so that no man will recognize who she is. All these methods are to be accepted for purification. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, one is fully purified, and thus one remains always transcendental to the contamination of the material world. Text 51. One should not lie down without having washed both of your feet, or without having been purified, nor with wet feet, or with your head pointed west or north. You should not lie naked, or with other women, or during the sunrise or sunset. Text 52. Putting on washed clothing, being always pure, and being adorned with turmeric, sandalwood pulp, and other auspicious items. Before breakfast, one should worship the cows, the brahmanas, the goddess of fortune, and the supreme personality of Godhead. So this is no simple vow. Purport. If one is trained to honor and worship the cows and brahmanas, he is actually civilized. The worship of the Supreme Lord is recommended, and the Lord is very fond of the cows and brahmanas. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. In other words, a civilization in which there is no respect for the cows and brahmanas is condemned. One cannot become spiritually advanced without acquiring the Brahminical qualifications and giving protection to cows and giving protection to the cows. Cow protection ensures sufficient food prepared with milk, which is needed for an advanced civilization. One should not pollute civilization by eating the flesh of cows. A civilization must do something progressive, and then it is an Aryan civilization. Instead of killing the cow to eat flesh, civilized men must prepare various milk products that will enhance the condition of society. If one follows the Brahminical culture, he will become competent in Krishna consciousness. Text 53. With flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, ornaments, and other paraphernalia, a woman following this vow should worship women who have sons and whose husbands are living. The pregnant wife should worship her husband and offer him prayers. She should meditate upon him, thinking that he is situated in her womb. Purport. A child is in the womb is a part of the husband's body. Therefore, the husband, through his representative, indirectly remains within the womb of his pregnant wife. Text 54. Kashyapa Muni continued, if you perform this ceremony called Pungsavana, adhering to the vow with faith for at least 1 year, you will give birth to a son destined to kill Indra. But if there is any discrepancy in the discharge of this vow, the son will be a friend to Indra. Text 55. O King Parikshit, Diti, the wife of Kashyapa, agreed to undergo the purificatory process known as Pungsavana. Yes, she said, I shall do everything according to your instructions. With great jubilation, she became pregnant, having taken semen from Kashyapa, and faithfully began discharging the vow. Text 56. O King, who were respectful to everyone, Indra understood Diti's purpose, and thus he contrived to fulfill his own interests. Following the logic that self-preservation is the first law of nature, he wanted to break Diti's promise. Thus he engaged himself in the service of Diti, his aunt, who was residing in an ashram. These things even happen in families, as they do today. Hare Krishna. Text 57. Indra served his aunt daily by bringing flowers, fruits, roots, and wood for yagyas, that means sacrifices, from the forest. He also brought kusha grass, leaves, sprouts, earth, and water exactly at the proper time. 58. O King Parikshit, as the hunter of deer becomes like a deer by covering his body with deer skin and serving the deer, so Indra, although at heart the enemy of the sons of Diti, became outwardly friendly and served Diti in a faithful way. Indra's purpose was to cheat Diti as soon as he could find some fault in the way she discharged the vows of the ritualistic ceremony. However, he wanted to be undetected, and therefore he served her very faithfully. Text 59. O Master of the entire world, when Indra could find no faults, he thought, how will there be good fortune for me? Thus he was full of deep anxiety. Text 60. Having grown weak and thin because of strictly following the principles of the vow, Diti once unfortunately neglected to wash her mouth, hands, and feet after eating, and went to sleep during the evening twilight. Oops. Text 61. Finding this fault, Indra, who has all the mystic powers, yoga siddhis such as Anima and Lagima, entered Diti's womb while she was unconscious, being fast asleep. Purport. A perfectly successful yogi is expert in all kinds of perfection. By one of them, called Anima Siddhi, he can become smaller than an atom, and in that state he can enter anywhere. With this yogic power, Indra entered the womb of Diti while she was pregnant. Text 62. After entering Diti's womb, Indra, with the help of his thunderbolt, cut into 7 pieces his embryo, which appeared like glowing gold. In 7 places, 7 different living beings began crying. Indra told them, do not cry, and then he cut each of them into 7 pieces again. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Indra, by his yogic power, first expanded the body of one Marut into 7, and then he cut each of the 7 parts of the original body into pieces. There were 49. When each body was cut into 7, other living entities entered the new bodies, and thus they were like plants, which became separate entities when cut into various parts and planted on a hill. The first body was one, and when it was cut into many pieces, many other living entities entered the new bodies. Text 63. O King, Being very much aggrieved, they pleaded to Indra with folded hands, saying, "Dear Indra, we are the Maruts, your brothers. Why are you trying to kill us?" Text 64. When Indra saw that actually they were his devoted followers, he said to them, "If you are all my brothers, you have nothing more to fear from me." Text 65. Shukadeva Goswami said, my dear King Parikshit, you were burned by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. But when Lord Krishna entered the womb of your mother, you were saved. Similarly, although the one embryo was cut into 49 pieces by the thunderbolt of Indra, they were all saved by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 66 and 67. If one worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original person, even once, he receives the benefit of being promoted to the spiritual world and possessing the same bodily features as Vishnu. Diti worshipped Lord Vishnu for almost 1 year, adhering to a great vow. Because of such strength in spiritual life, the 49 Maruts were born. How then is it wonderful that the Maruts, although born from the womb of Diti, became equal to the demigods by the mercy of the Supreme Lord? Text 68. Because of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Diti was completely purified. When she got up from bed, she saw her 49 sons along with Indra. These 49 sons were all as brilliant as fire and were in friendship with Indra, and therefore she was very pleased because she had become a Vaishnavi. Text 69. Thereafter Diti said to Indra, "My dear son, I adhered to this difficult vow just to get a son to kill you 12 Adityas." Text 70. I prayed for only one son, but now I see that there are 49. How has this happened? My dear son Indra, if you know, please tell me the truth. Do not try to speak lies. Text 71. Indra replied, "My dear mother, because I was grossly blinded by selfish interests, I lost sight of religion. When I understood that you were observing a great vow in spiritual life, I wanted to find some fault in you. When I found such a fault, I entered your womb and cut the embryo to pieces." Purport. When Diti, Indra's aunt, explained to Indra without reservations what she wanted to do, Indra explained his intentions to her. Thus both of them, instead of being enemies, freely spoke the truth. This is the qualification that results from coming in contact with Vishnu. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 5:18-12, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate sudaha. If one develops a devotional attitude and becomes purified by worshipping the Supreme Lord, all the good qualities are certainly manifested in his body. Because of being touched by worship of Vishnu, both Diti and Indra were purified. Text 72. First I cut the child in the womb into 7 pieces, which became 7 children. Then I cut each of the children into 7 pieces again. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, however, none of them died. Text 73. My dear mother, when I saw that all 49 sons were alive, I was certainly struck with wonder. I decided that this was a secondary result of your having regularly executed devotional service in worship of Lord Vishnu. Purport. For one who engages in worshipping Lord Vishnu, nothing is very wonderful. This is a fact. In Bhagavad Gita 1878, it is said, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yata Parto Danurdaraha Tatra Shvir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Yogeshwara is the Supreme Personality of God and the master of all mystic power, who can do anything and everything he likes. This is the omnipotence of the Supreme Lord. For one who pleases the Supreme Lord, no achievement is wonderful. Everything is possible for him. Text 74. Although those who are interested only in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead do not desire anything material from the Lord, and do not even want liberation, Lord Krishna fulfills all their desires. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj saw Lord Vishnu, he declined to take any benedictions from him, for he was fully satisfied by seeing the Lord. Nonetheless, the Lord is so kind that because Dhruva Maharaj in the beginning had desired a kingdom greater than his father's, he was promoted to Dhruvaloka, the best planet in the universe. Therefore, in the Shastra it is said, Akama, Sarvakama va, Mokshakarma, Udaradihi, Tivrina Bhakti Yogena, Yajeta Purusham Param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he is full of material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam 2:3-10. One should engage in full devotional service. Then, even though he has no desires, whatever desires he previously had can all be fulfilled simply by his worship of the Lord. The actual devotee does not desire even liberation. Anyabilashita Shunyam. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1:11. The Lord, however, fulfills the desires of the devotee by awarding him opulence that will never be destroyed. A karmi's opulence is destroyed, but the opulence of a devotee is never destroyed. A devotee becomes more and more opulent as he increases his devotional service to the Lord. Text 75. The ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness, which is available even in hell? Purport. An intelligent man will never aspire to become a devotee to achieve material happiness. That is the test of a devotee. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kabitam va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaituki Twayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. A pure devotee never begs the Lord for material happiness in the shape of riches, followers, a good wife, or even mukti. The Lord promises, however, Yoga Chemam Vahamyaham, Bhagavad Gita 9:22. I voluntarily bring everything necessary for my service. 76. My dear mother, O my mother, O best of all women, I am a fool. Kindly excuse me for whatever offenses I have committed. Your 49 sons have been born unhurt because of your devotional service. As an enemy, I have cut them to pieces, but because of your great devotional service, they did not die. Text 77. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, Diti was extremely satisfied by Indra's good behavior. Then Indra offered his respects to his aunt with profuse obeisances, and with her permission, he went away to the heavenly planets with his brothers, the Maruts. Text 78. My dear King Parikshit, I have replied as far as possible to the questions you have asked me, especially in regard to this pure auspicious narration about the Maruts. Now you may inquire further, and I shall explain more. Thus ending Bhaktivedanta purports to the 6th canto, 18th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Diti Vows to Kill King Indra. Oh, all right, you can have last word. So we clap after every chapter because this is like the supreme drama. You know, this is another play. What do they call it? Act. It's another act of this. It has like more than 360 acts, and we just finished one of them. Okay, let's move on. 19. Performing the Pung Savana ritualistic ceremony. This chapter explains how Diti, Kashyapa Muni's wife, executed Kashyapa Muni's instructions on devotional service. Now, I don't want you new kids to get the wrong idea. We don't have to do all this kind of rituals here. This was for many generations ago. We're no longer capable of doing all those things. Our devotional service has been simplified for us because of our incapacity to do such a thing, as you're about to hear. But if you chant Hare Krishna, because the latest incarnation of God came 500 years ago in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is the Yuga Dharma. The time is divided into very large cycles. Like now we're entering into summer, right? The summer, then there'll be fall, then there'll be winter, then there'll be spring, there'll be summer again. So it's a cycle. We have a day, seconds, minutes, hours, midday, and like that. Night, like that. So there's cycles, and there's larger cycles, but there's a basic cycle. And there's 4 yugas that form that basic cycle of time. And there's an incarnation of God that appears in each one of those yugas, which make 4 yugas in a cycle, the basic cycle. And Lord Chaitanya is the Yuga Dharma for this particular yuga that we're living in now, the Kali Yuga. And because of the fallen condition of this age, spiritually speaking, we've been given a very easy process, not doing all these rituals. We do some rituals, we follow some rules and regulations to purify ourselves, but mainly the Yuga Dharma, the process for becoming perfectly purified and awakening our spiritual form and our spiritual desires, and ultimately going back to the spiritual world, is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's free, costs not a penny. It gives you peace of mind at the very beginning, without any payment, and it will gradually give you pure love awaken your original spiritual identity as a servant, not as a master, but as a servant of God, and elevate you to the point where at the time of death, you can think in love of Krishna and the spiritual personalities there in the spiritual world, our real family members, our eternal family members. And then when you leave your body, you transfer immediately to the spiritual world, instantaneously. You don't have to come back and do this body that's such trouble, such a problem, just to lug it around and make sure it stays healthy and all these things. It's a big effort. In the spiritual world, there's no difference between the soul and the body. Everything is spiritual, eternal, blissful, full of knowledge. Don't need an internet. You already know everything. This is the spiritual world. So the goal of all of this we're talking about is to bring us to the point of inspiration, faith, if you like it, or another way of saying it is rational faith, reasonable faith. By hearing all these wonderful stories and the philosophy that goes behind it, it convinces us gradually and purifies us gradually to be able to want, first of all, to know who we are. Most people don't. All the animals, how many living beings are in the world? Billions, trillions. Only a few human beings. And look at the mess we're making of it. You know? So, but at the same time, the human being has the capacity to understand these things. It has we have a capacity to sit here like this and try to understand more deeply who we are, what the material world is, where we came from, where we're going, how to get there. Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to hear this tremendously detailed ritualistic ceremony that Diti performed for a whole year. This chapter explains how Diti, Kashyapa Muni's wife, executed Kashyapa Muni's instructions on devotional service. During the first day of the bright fortnight of the moon of the month of Agrahayana, November-December, every woman following in the footsteps of Diti and following the instructions of her own husband should begin this Pungshavana Vrat. In the morning, after washing her teeth, bathing, and thus becoming purified, she should hear about the birth mystery of the Maruts. Then, covering her body with white dress and being properly ornamented, before breakfast, she should worship Lord Vishnu and Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, Lord Vishnu's wife, by glorifying Lord Vishnu for his mercy, patience, prowess, ability, greatness, and other glories, and for how he can bestow all mystic benedictions, while offering the Lord all paraphernalia for worship, such as ornaments, a sacred thread, scents, nice flowers, incense, and water for bathing and washing his feet, hands and mouth. One should invite the Lord with this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahanubhavaya Mahavibhuti Pataye Samaha Vibhuti Bir Balim Uparahami. Then one should offer 12 oblations in the fire by chanting this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahavibhuti Pataye Swaha. One should offer obeisances while chanting this mantra 10 times. Then one should chant the Lakshmi Narayana mantra. If either a pregnant woman or a husband regularly discharges this devotional service, both of them will receive the result. After continuing this process for 1 full year, the chaste wife should fast on the Purnima, the full moon day of Kartik. On the following day, the husband should worship the Lord as before, and then observe a festival by cooking nice food and distributing prasad to the brahmanas. Then, with the permission of the brahmanas, the husband and wife should take prasad. This chapter ends by glorifying the results of the Pungsavana function. and we're going to stop here for tonight for the reading. And we have a nice little section of our nightly reading that is called the open mic. We've got a mic here, and if anybody has heard something that stuck in the mind that they want to reflect upon, one's own realizations, or that wants to be discussed in more depth and understanding, or questions, whatever. The floor is now in your court. I mean, the ball, rather, is in your court. Yes, Sarva. This is our local saint, Sarva Bhavana.
In normal circumstances, like if you aim a rocket towards a target, but you're off in your beginning trajectory, the rocket will miss the mark.
Yeah.
But in this story of Diti and Indra and Kashyapa, it seems like Diti and Indra had some kind of material motivations, but they were doing some devotional vows and different things, and somehow they got the rocket of their intentions was somehow changed. And you comment on this because as devotees we're not always pure when we begin. We may have some motivation.
Yes. Well, the basic purpose, thank you, Bharsama, for that lovely question. As usual, you ask always deep questions. Well, the purpose of the Bhagavatam, every single pastime, even though some of them seem like they're very unseemly, they seem like all these very unpure things are going on, But the Bhagavatam always brings it back to pure devotional service, and that's what connects it and what makes it the Amala Purana, or the pure Purana, the Purana without any defect, without any material imperfections. So the kind of spiritual law that's being explained again and again in different ways from different pastimes and different times in the universe is that when one performs devotional service to the Lord, even if one is not perfectly motivated in the beginning, if he continues to do that vow, then eventually he becomes purified. And the vow, not only does the vow point us in the right direction to the goal, but it purifies us to make us eligible to get to the goal. In other words, the means to achieve the goal and the goal are the same. That is the difference between bhakti yoga and all the other kinds of yoga. The Bhagavad Gita, you may have heard Bhagavad Gita. It's a very famous scripture, very famous spiritual book of spiritual knowledge, and it was spoken by Krishna himself, the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of God. And so there he explains to Arjuna all the different things he can do, all the different levels of yoga that he can choose from. First one is karma yoga. Karma yoga means when one is attached to the fruits of one's activities, but at the same time becomes aware that there is a Supreme and wants to please the Supreme or connect with the Supreme. That's what yoga means, to connect. And then he gives some of the fruits to the Supreme, to the process of yoga. Then he performs karma yoga, and he improves his situation, his life situation. And then once his body becomes kind of purified or regulated by that karma yoga, then his mind automatically, without separate endeavor, becomes inquisitive about the difference between spirit and matter, and how to understand spiritual concepts, and curiosity comes also. And that is called Jnana Yoga. And then one studies in yoga to try to understand the absolute truth by the process of negating the things that are not the absolute truth. So the goal of karma yoga, or the topmost goal that you can achieve by performing karma yoga, is the heavenly planets. You can improve yourself to go to heavenly planets where some of the personalities we were just hearing about live, and they have very long lifespans, up until trillions of years. And you can imagine how much pleasure there is to be able to live that long. It actually gives you a sense of being eternal, but you're not eternal, but it seems like you are because you live for such a long time. So that's the ultimate conclusion you can reach by karma yoga. And by jnana yoga, by this process of analyzing what is spirit, what is matter, what is true, what is not, and coming to the spiritual platform, then you can enter into the spiritual atmosphere. Beyond the material world, there's a spiritual atmosphere. And it has a sky, just like we have a sky here in between all the planets. So in the spiritual atmosphere, there's a sky, and it's called the Brahma Jyoti. Jyoti means light. There's a lot of talk about in the Yoga Sutras and in the various revealed scriptures of all the religions in the world. There's a lot of talk about going to the light. Tamasos means Jyotirgama. Don't stay in the darkness, go to the light. So the Jnana Yoga process, this is a ladder. It's like a ladder of yoga, of different activities, to take us to different angles of vision of the absolute truth. But that Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence of Krishna. Just like the sunshine is the light that lights the whole universe. So the Brahma Jyoti coming from the body of Krishna, the original form of God, lights up the whole spiritual world. And by a reflective process, just like here, the sun comes in here and bounces off something and comes in here, and in that way it goes everywhere. So in the spiritual sky, the sky is formed of the effulgence, spiritual effulgence of Krishna. It's full of light. There's no darkness. And then when the Jnana Yogi becomes purified, his mind becomes purified by understanding, by studying the Upanishads, the different sections of the Vedas which explain spiritual energy and the difference between matter and spirit. Then he becomes inquisitive about his actual identity and desires mystic perfections. Then he goes to Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, and he meditates and goes inside by controlling the life airs, and goes inside and finds the localized expansion of God inside the heart. So the Brahman is the effulgence, and every place is permeated by that effulgence of God, that the light of God's transcendental body. But he also has a localized aspect, because that's an impersonal aspect. But he also has a personal aspect that's localized in the heart of every living being. And the Ashtanga Yoga practice is meant to search for that. But then, because in each one of those kinds of yoga, there is a personal interest. In karma yoga, there's an interest for the fruits, or to improve our own position in this world, for higher degrees of satisfaction, pleasure, longer life, more opulence, longer whatever. And in the Jnana Yoga, the tendency is to want to perfect one's life by mental speculation, so then we can go to the Brahma Jyoti. So there's a desire for knowing for enjoying the mind. You can get a lot of, just like jazz musicians, they get a lot of pleasure by playing with the melodies that are inside their mind through an instrument. So like that, this is the intellectual, creative, subtle creative potencies that everyone has. And then in the Ashtanga Yoga process, there's an actual desire for mystic power, for the ability to, travel through the air, or to shrink oneself, or expand oneself, or do so many things that you can do with yogic power. Levitate. And anyway, but then in Bhakti Yoga is the topmost rung of yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, there's no more personal desire. There's no more desire for one's own self-aggrandizement or self-improvement. There is just a desire to please the source of all of this knowledge and all of this energy. And that is Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service, where the only desire is to please the senses of the Supreme. So as Sarva asked a question, I'm trying to answer the question as deeply as I can, that sometimes it seems like in the beginning there may be desires or something that is not right, that is not proper, but if you do Bhakti Yoga, then automatically all the other kinds of desires, they become satisfied automatically without separate endeavor, and you become qualified to reach the supreme goal of life, which is pure love of God, and meet Krishna face to face, and engage in loving service, direct, face to face. That's the goal of what we're doing here. So he's using the example of, if a jet goes just a little tiny bit off course because he goes very fast, in a short time he's farther off the mark. He doesn't go to the mark. But in Bhakti Yoga, it's a self-corrective, what do they call it? You chart a course. It's a self-corrective,
Smart rockets
that adjust things as they go along, except if there's a mistake and then it goes down to the ground. That's the defect of material nature. But this is spiritual nature, so there's no defects. There's what's verse? There's a very famous verse. Well, it's not so famous, but Prabhupada quotes it sometimes. That Bhakti Yoga, or the chanting of the holy name, Namaparadam Yuktana Namamevya Agam Maham. And there's two other lines I can't remember, but it means that the chanting of the holy name, or pure Bhakti Yoga, the ultimate practice of pure Bhakti Yoga is the chanting of God's holy name without offense. There's a whole science behind that, by the way. And then this verse, it's in the Padma Purana, and it says that even persons who are offensive, or persons who are committing offenses, if they continue to chant, then those offenses, all of those offenses, will be purified, and as Sarah was saying, your course will be corrected until you reach the lotus feet of Krishna, and then see him face to face and play with him. Have your meals with him. We have something from cyberspace.
Rati says, Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight we have heard that a devotee becomes increasingly opulent by the performance of devotional service. Normally speaking, when we hear of becoming opulent, We think of it in terms of gaining money and possessions. Would you please elaborate on how we can understand the opulence of a devotee?
Well, the opulence of a devotee is that he's no longer attracted to the opulence of this material world, the ordinary material opulences. So he's willing to give up anything in order to achieve devotional service, in order to achieve the spiritual world. But the thing is, sometimes the Lord, seeing that's the desire, he'll give special mercy to the devotee by taking everything away, all the material opulence. So they'll have nothing but Krishna to focus his attention on, to aspire for. But when a devotee becomes especially favored by Krishna and is given intimate service, confidential service, then that service will require some kind of opulence in order to perfect it. In order to, for instance, we have this, everything inside, at least the files, they all have something to do about Krishna. And therefore, if we use this, we're using this to broadcast these readings of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and spread it as far as we can. So those kinds of opulence are given to Krishna, or you can tell rather, if an opulence is given to you by Krishna or by the material energy, by what the effect of it is, what the effect of it has on your own consciousness and on the consciousness of others. So those opulences that you have, that a devotee has, that are used to spread Krishna consciousness, are coming from Krishna, and they're acceptable. And whatever opulence a devotee actually needs to perform his service for Krishna, even in the material world, they're provided by Krishna without any separate endeavor. So that's how to tell whether opulence is actually favorable or unfavorable, whether it's being sent by Krishna or is it being sent by the material energy. And that is that we're becoming more and more purified and more elevated in devotional service by the presence of those opulences. But some devotees, to set an example for others, will shun all opulence, all material opulence, and they'll just live in a cave, without anything, but just chant the holy name constantly. That's another. And just by a person in that level, just by chanting and desiring that people become Krishna conscious, Krishna arranges it from within the hearts of other living entities by the desire of that pure devotee. That's the supreme opulence. The supreme opulence of Krishna is that he comes and gives his own association to those that are even fallen and unqualified. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's Krishna in the mood of Radharani coming to give his association to people who are unqualified, even like us. Yes. That's the supreme opulence of Krishna, and it's shared by the devotees who agree to dedicate their energies, to sacrifice their energies, to give their energies to all other living beings by helping them become Krishna conscious. If you see little spiders crawling on the wall, you just come up and say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And that spider makes spiritual advancement. It's perfect. You go out on the streets and chant Hare Krishna in a huge kirtan, and many people become benefited spiritually. That service results in a heart that is not only fully purified and capable of experiencing pleasure, but it can experience pure love of God, the supreme pleasure and the supreme opulence of knowledge of God and pure devotional service, which satisfies Krishna and therefore satisfies us completely. Completely. We can't even imagine that in the material world, to be completely satisfied. We're used to just working hard, getting something that we feel good about, and then having it taken away by time in some way or another. And we're like that. We're like on a roller coaster and a merry-go-round simultaneously. So those opulences don't satisfy the soul. They might satisfy the senses for a few seconds or a few moments or even a few months or years. But then when it wears off and then we're back where we started from, it's like, oh my God, do I have to go up there again to get that thrill of coming down in a roller coaster? That's the difference between material pleasure and spiritual pleasure. Spiritual pleasure is there within our hearts already, and therefore we want to feel good, we want not to die, we want to live forever, and we don't want to die. That's the symptoms of our spiritual identity and our spiritual capacity. It's what makes us all the same, even though each one of us are different. None of us want to die. And in the material world, we develop industries, billion-dollar industries, just to produce products, to make us pretend that we're not getting old and we're not going to die. And we all die trying. But we don't die, that's the thing. The body dies, but we don't die. We know that already. We don't need to have some kind of special spiritual realization. We know that from what we can see in front of our eyes right now. My body is changing at every second. Like, here we have our 8-year-old Vaishnava. And if we come back and watch and see him, 10 years from now, he'll look completely different. Have you seen a picture of your baby body? No? Did you? Did it look exactly like you? No. Anyway, when you get my age, it'll look even so different that you wouldn't be able to recognize it. You put up a whole picture of a montage of all the babies' bodies of all the people in this room. Now picture yourself out. I don't think so. But here we are in this body that's completely changed. Every cell in the body has changed. But we're the same person, right? Do you remember being in your crib in the hospital? Really? Whoa. The saint is among us. I mean, most people can only remember up to, 3, 4, 5 years? So we have the evidence in front of us, but we haven't been trained to see the evidence, to evaluate the evidence, to accept the evidence. And therefore we think that we are the body. That's the way we think. If I ask anybody, go out in the street, who are you? I'm an American, or I'm Latin American, or I'm German, or I'm Indian, or I'm a student, or I'm a husband or a wife, or whatever. Politician, scientist, engineer, doctor. That's who we think we are. But we're not those things. We have those identities temporarily, but what we are, we don't know. But we know that we're different than the body because we dream at night and we have a different experience, but we're there, experiencing all the emotions and things that are going on in our dreams. Then we come back into the body, which was laying in the bed. Then we have to remember, oh yeah, I'm such and such. I have to get up and take a bath and go take care of such and this, do that, so many things. And then at some point in the future, which to us is maybe 100 years or 50 years or 60 years, we have to go. It's over. But in the spiritual world, the persons in the spiritual world, that length of time is not even a blink in the eye. Just not a blink of the eye. That would be nice. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rati, for that nice question. Thanks, Sarva, for that fantastic question. That was a great question. We hope that you new guests got something. It's an ocean. without you even knowing it, you've kind of dived into the deep end of an ocean of knowledge and transcendental pleasure. If we can train our bodies and our minds to do devotional service and to learn, just like if you want to do something very special, you have to take time, you have to do austerities, you have to sacrifice energy. Sometimes you even have to sacrifice things that your friends are doing. You want to learn instruments so well that you can play in Carnegie Hall or, I don't know, do something, get a gold medal in the Olympics or something. Anything that's worth doing, you have to really put out, win the NBA championships, But the spiritual goal is way, way, way beyond all those things, and therefore it requires a level of commitment, a devotion. If you're devoted to something, then you can do it nicely. In order to get good enough at anything to be able to be recognized internationally, you have to be very devoted to that thing. So devoted that other people will patronize you and give you funds so that you will be able to sacrifice your energy to gain that goal, to get that goal. So therefore we shouldn't think that spiritual life is just something airy-fairy and all I have to do is throw up my hands and say, I believe, and that's it. No. It requires. You can come here. No? Are you sure? Okay. Okay, anyway, thank you very much for coming. And we pray that you come back. There's a whole society and activities that we do, festivals and chanting and dancing and feasting and hearing deep spiritual truths and practicing and becoming qualified. And giving it to others, explaining it to others to make them happy. And we get a level of happiness, a sense of happiness that's so beyond the beyond that it's hard to describe. It takes 18,000 verses to describe it. So we welcome you and we invite you warmly to come and join us, join this little family. And thank you for coming. And thank all of you out in cyberspace for coming and joining this adventure, hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam all the way through. All right, thank you again. Hare Krishna. Diti ki jai, the sacrifice of Diti ki jai. Indra ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you. Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night is Saturday, 4:30 in the afternoon, Central Time. Hare Krishna. Thank you.